This is workout B of your strength training plan. Just to recap, remember we've got 6 exercises in these workouts broken up into 2 different groups, Group A and Group B. For Group A, you've got the 3 exercises, A1, A2, A3, and you're going to move through them like a circuit. A1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, until you've gone through that 3 times. Then you're done with A. Then you move on to B, B1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. B is done, you're done the workout. Woo! Now, keep that in mind as we go through this so that that format is locked in. So let's get to exercise A1. And this is going to be a lower body exercise called the lateral squat. So to set up for this exercise, I want you to get your feet about hip width apart, maybe a little bit wider. Feet are going to be toes just a little bit turned out. And from here, I want you to get down into a squat. Okay? So your hips are going to be down, if you can, about in line with your knees. They do not need to be lower. So about in line with your knees. Some of you might be higher. Get to the depth that you can get to. So get into this position. From here, hold this and step one leg out. Come up. This is your lateral squat position. Okay? The lateral squat, different from the regular squat in that it's going to engage some muscles that are really important for your side-to-side movement. So for this squat, we're now set up in our lateral squat position. What we're going to do is perform 10 lateral squats per side. For this, all I want you to think about is squatting or bending on the one side of your body while keeping the other leg straight. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to squat to my left. All I'm going to think about doing is keeping a proud chest, my hips square to the front, and sitting my hips down. Get to the depth where my hips are about in line with my knee. My knee stays in line with my toes. It's not buckled in. It's not way past. It's in line. And then I push away to get back up. So again, proud chest, bend the knee, and just think about sitting down to the one side as your other leg stays straight. Get down until your hips are in line with your knees. Now push into the ground and away to get up. You're going to do 10 on one side and then the same thing, 10 on the other. Now something that helps a lot of people is reaching out for balance as you sit your hips back and down and then push away to come up. So you can use that strategy a bit for balance. Now weeks 1 and 2, you are going to do 10 repetitions. That means 10 times on one side, 10 times on the other. Don't rush them, just find an easy, even rhythm of down and up. When we get to week 3, if you're feeling strong in this movement, we're going to make it a little bit more dynamic. So remind yourself of the width of your lateral squat. You might want to put something on the ground to kind of indicate where your foot should stop, because you're actually going to be doing a lateral lunge if you're able. So for this one now, we're going to step out and then lower ourselves down, push away and come up. So it's a lot more dynamic. So when you're starting, you might just go into the step out, lower, and we're going to do a 3-second lower. 1, 2, 3, up 1, and out. Down, 1, 2, 3, pause a moment, come up, and repeat. As you get more confident with this, you could actually step out and sink into it, as opposed to stepping out and then pausing before you do the 3-second lower. Does that make sense? Level 1 of this is step out and then lower. Level 2 is step out and sink into that with that 3-second count immediately. Okay? Do that on the other side. Again, find your distance. And now you're going to get into it. 1, 2, 3, push and repeat. All right, week number 4. Put a little twist on it. It's going to be that lateral lunge again, but this time you are going to hold the bottom position for 3 seconds. All of these things that we're doing, and we did this in workout 1 with our split squats, is just to be able to get more control of our lower body, increase our stability, which is going to be huge for safeguarding your lower body, those ankles, knees, and hips. So for this one, we're going to step out, lunge out, lower, hold, 1, 2, 3, up, out, down, 1, 2, 3, up. So at this point, because we've controlled the lowering and the position with the previous versions, we're going to speed the lowering and hold the bottom position. So you're gonna do 10 on each side. You're gonna move on to your next exercise, which is going to be your wall slide or your floor slide. This is your upper body exercise. Great for prepping those shoulders, getting them ready for your shooting, for all that movement that we do. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like sitting up and then demonstrate it on the ground. So you can imagine right now that I'm lying on my back on the ground, knees up, and I'm in this position. My elbows are about in line with my shoulders, and the backs of my hands and my forearms, I'm trying to keep them in contact with the ground. From here, I take a breath in, and then I exhale, and reach overhead. Now, what I'm trying to do is keep the back of my hands, my forearms in contact with the ground. Some of you are gonna notice when you're doing this on the ground that your hands are gonna leave and your forearms are gonna leave contact with the ground, okay? This means we've got some work to do. That foam rolling and that T-spine mobility will help with this a little bit, but this will be another thing to add to this improved range of motion and movement, okay? So breathe in, exhale, pushing back with those forearms and hands, breathe in, exhale, going up. Now we do it on the ground first so that gravity can help us out. Lying down here, breathe in, exhale, gravity helps us out, okay? We're gonna do 10 of those. Now what I want you to keep in mind as we do this, we're gonna keep our core tight the whole time. The reason we're gonna do that is because we don't wanna do this. Arch our back and make it easy. That's a cheat. We wanna keep that core tight, keep that low back and that lower spine neutral, so very close to the ground and no movement as we move our arms. Breathe in, exhale, not this. Breathe in, exhale here, okay? Keep that core tight, breathe in, exhale, up. Now, as you go through the weeks, you may get to the point where you're gonna do it at a wall. And so in that case, you can get into a wall sit position or sitting like this at the wall, cross-legged, and doing the same thing at the wall. And then gravity doesn't help you in the same way, okay? That's exercise A2. You're doing 10 reps all the way through the 4 weeks. Our third exercise in the A grouping is gonna be our core exercise, our T-plank. So for this one, we're gonna get into a high plank position or a push-up hold, nice and strong. Your feet are gonna be wider. Try to get them wider than your hands. It's gonna help you stay balanced as you move. So from here, you're gonna turn your hips and open up so that your hips are perpendicular to the ground. You're reaching up to the ceiling and then controlling those hips and upper body as you come down to the ground. Turning the other direction, go onto the sides of your feet, reach up and down. What we're looking for is our hips rotating but not sagging. So keep that core tight, keep those legs locked. This movement happens, not this movement. So for the first 2 weeks, you're gonna do 10 reps alternating. So it's 5 reps per side, but 10 reps in total. Now, when we get to weeks 3 and 4, we're gonna add a little bit more pulling action, a little more upper back muscle engagement, and challenge this core exercise with it. So we're gonna get to the same position, but now we're gonna push with the one hand into the ground, as we should be doing in the previous version as well. But we're gonna push and we're gonna pull the other elbow back, then open, bring it in, down. Other side, row it in, open, squeeze those shoulder blades together, bring it in and down. So whether you're doing weeks 1 and 2, this T-plank, or this row and T, I always want you to squeeze your shoulder blades together at the T. And squeeze it also when you add that row. The row is going to be significantly harder because we're spending more time on one arm. So it's not row like this, it's row, then open. If you can't do all 10 reps cleanly with the row and T, maybe start with just a couple of reps with the row and T, and then finish the rest with just the T, okay? If you find the T-plank really challenging, break down the 10 reps into chunks. But the goal is to get to those 10 reps straight. You might not even get to the row and roll, which is okay, all right? We're building ourselves up, and I just want to give you options to challenge yourself. So that's group A, exercises 1, 2, and 3. Remember, you do it like a circuit, and you go through it 3 times. Okay, group Group B. We're gonna start with the first exercise, which is the squat. So feet are about hip width, toes are turned out a little bit. You're gonna find your sweet spot. Okay, but here are the guidelines for it, regardless of where your feet are or how turned out they are. These are the guidelines. When I go down into my squat, I need to make sure that my feet stay glued to the ground the entire time. So if your heels are coming up off the ground, you're either going too low or your feet are a little bit too narrow or your toes need to turn out a little bit. Okay, rule number one, this is a rule for this particular squat. Feet stay flat. Rule number two is we have to be able to keep this proud posture. So if we start getting into this rounded posture, all right, we probably have to have our feet a bit wider so we can get a little bit lower. Okay, so proud posture, only go as deep as you can go, keeping your feet flat and your back straight or neutral, chest proud. Okay, we don't want to have an over curved back. I'm only going to do that once. I don't want you to have an over curved back where you're kind of tilting your hips back all the way. Keep that nice neutral spine. And rule number three, or my kind of main guideline number three, is that your knees need to stay in line with your toes. They don't get to buckle in. Okay? So as I'm doing this squat, I need to be in a position where my feet can stay flat, my knees stay in line with the middle of my feet, the middle of my toes, and my chest can stay proud. So that might mean this low, it might mean this low, maybe this low. Find the sweet spot. Your goal depth is not butt to the ground. Right now, your goal depth is thighs parallel, the tops of your thighs parallel to the ground. Because when we start adding weight, we don't need to go deeper, but we do want to have that goal ultimately. Your knees absolutely can go towards and past your toes. Again, as long as you're following my three big guidelines, feet stay flat, knees in line with toes, proud chest. You're going to push into the ground and spread the floor to stand up. So I pull myself down. I actively push my whole foot into the ground. I even think about spreading the floor apart. And you're going to feel that here. You're going to feel those glutes a lot more as you do that going into that squat. Okay? Your first week, you're going to do a 3-second lower. 1, 2, 3. Hold one, up one, down. 1, 2, 3. Hold one, up one. Week number 2, you're going to go down, hold. 1, 2, 3, up. Down, 1, 2, 3, up. Weeks 3 and 4, you're just going to do 10 straight reps. Okay? Because in week 3 and 4, you're going to be making your lateral squat a little bit tougher. So we're going to try to find a balance between those two exercises. Exercise number 2 in group B is going to be our glute bridge. We're lying on the ground, lying on our back. Our heels are just a little bit away from our hips or our butt. For me, it's about my fingertips distance, but for everyone, it's going to be a bit different. So somewhere in this range. Heels glue into the ground, toes up, feet hip width apart. I'm going to keep myself more balanced with my hands on the ground, or it can be on my belly. I'm going to drive my heels into the ground, squeeze my glutes, and keep my core tight as though I'm making a bridge that someone will step on. So don't let it overarch, don't let it sag, nice and tight. Squeeze your glutes, dig your heels, and tap down and drive in, squeeze your glutes up. When you're doing this, you can even push your knees out a little bit to get that extra squeeze in your glutes down. I want you to always pause at the top, big squeeze, nice and tight. This exercise on its own is phenomenal for your glutes, your low back, your core, but it also prepares you for when we eventually start doing deadlifts when we get to the weight room. Okay? You're going to do 15 reps in total, okay, in week 1 and week 2. In week 3, we're going to add a challenge. You're going to do a glute bridge, up, march 1, march 2, down. Hands can be here or on your chest to make it a bit tougher. Again, watch this though. Glute bridge, solid. Now, the balance is going to be tough. You're going to start feeling your body wants to twist. Don't let it. Drive your heel into the ground. Up 1, pause. Down. Up 2, pause. Down. Hips down. Repeat for 10. That's going to be a bit of a doozy, okay? On the final week, if you are ready for it, you can move from the march to a walkout. Looks like this. Hips come up, march, but move your feet forward with 4 steps. Pause, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. Now, you might have trouble managing it with 4 steps, as in it might get a little bit clunky figuring out the distance, but start with the 4 steps to get out, because if you go from here and then walk out all the way out here, it's a pretty rude awakening. You will feel this more in your hamstrings. You will feel it a lot in your back if you're not making sure to keep your core nice and tight and engaged. So actually only step out as far as you can keep that core nice and solid and avoid the low back from feeling uncomfortable. Okay, so 10 reps of those march versions or the walkout versions. Your final exercise is our core exercise. You're gonna get into this bear crawl position. I don't have a pad at the moment, but I encourage you to have a mat or a pad under your knees. It's gonna be our bird dog. So for this one, to set it up, hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. Take a deep breath in, exhale, set your core. We don't wanna look rounded. We don't wanna be arched. We wanna be in the middle. So something you can even do is do this little cat, cow, middle, and this is where you're gonna work from. We're gonna do 5 bird dogs per side. So a bird dog is when you go opposite arm and leg out and in. So we're gonna let our hand and our knee hover. 1, 2, clenched fist, lock that knee, squeeze the glutes, stay tight. In, you're gonna do 5 of those without touching the ground, then touch the ground, 5 on the other side. If it is too hard for you to do 5 in a row without touching the ground, just take a break, just touch the ground in between. Your goal though is 5 in a row. So the first 2 weeks, it's 5 per side. Week number 3, now that you've got it locked down how this should feel, you're gonna do alternating. Boom, down, switch, out, pause, down. Never rush it. The slower, the more difficult. So you're gonna alternate. 10 in total, switching each time. On week 4, if you can handle it, and this will be really tough, so this might be none of you, it might be some of you, okay, is hover your knees. And you're gonna reach out, bring it in, alternating, solid, reach out, bring it in. Not gonna lie, that's tough for me too, okay? So that's exercise B3. Squat, glute bridge, bird dog. Go through that 3 times, you're done. So this is workout 2. Now you know what to do.